It's a VGBLTPTA! I totally suck at video games, but love to play them anyway. Okay, here in the US, we just had Tales of the Abyss for 3DS and Tales of Grace's F for PS3 come out. Hooray! In celebration of Tales games making it to the US, I thought I'd do a special. Since a big focus of games for me are the characters, I thought I'd take a look at the playable characters in the 3 Tales of games that I've beaten. The Tales game in question are Tales of Symphonia, Tales of Legendia, and Tales of the Abyss for the PS2. I actually just beat Abyss last month. Symphonia I beat in 2006 sometime, and Legendia I beat about 2 years ago. Some details were a little foggy, so I had to refresh myself by using the internet before doing this video. So if I'm a tad vague at times, that'd be why. Sorry. Interestingly enough, all 3 games have just about the same amount of playable characters. Symphonia has 9, with Lloyd, Colette, Kratos, Genis, Rain, Persea, Regal, Zelos, and Sheena, although you do have to choose between Kratos and Zelos, sadly. Legendia has 8, with Senel, Norma, Will, Jay, Moses, Chloe, Grun, and Shirley, and Abyss technically only has 6, with Luke, Guy, Tyr, Natalia, Jade, and Annis, but in the second time through you can have Ion in your party, and also Ash is playable at certain parts, so for the sake of this special I'm including them. So each game has 8 or 9 in Symphonia's case main characters, and these characters can be broken down into archetypes that occur in each game. That's what I did for this video. So without further ado, let's begin the comparisons! First up are the leading men, though there are actually more boys than men. Lloyd, Senel, and Luke are these leading boys, and they are all alike and yet not, as they do develop in very different ways. As the main characters of the games they star in, their most important role is to draw the others together, and also show change throughout the game. Lloyd, well, I like him, but he starts as an upstanding boy and ends an upstanding boy. He has his own beliefs and morals, and he pretty much sticks to them through the game. However, he kind of needs to, as it is his beliefs that get him and the other heroes through the game and give them a reason to fight. Senel goes more the route of cold-hearted bastard into someone who can admit they need friends every now and again. He doesn't do the best job of drawing the heroes together, as it's mostly Shirley's plight that starts it, but eventually Senel does become a likable guy. It's not much of a change, but it's still neat to see him slightly soften to his comrades after him being kind only to Shirley for a large chunk of the game. Luke definitely has the most character development of the 3, as he goes from spoiled brat to a responsible and good-hearted young man. Playing as Luke and seeing him change through the whole game was really well done, and Luke is probably one of the few RPG heroes that actually does go through a realistic change. The characters are drawn to him initially out of bad reasons, but his changes in character traits keep them around. Of the 3, I think I like Luke best, as his reactions and changes just really got to me. Every leading man in a Tales game seems to need a leading lady, so let's look at them next. Colette, Shirley, and Tyr fill that spot, though not always in a romantic aspect, as the Tales of games tend to have ambiguous romantic subplots. Colette is a kind and virtuous girl who is set up to be a human sacrifice and knows it. She's selfless and just wants the best for everyone. I can like this aspect when done correct, but Colette just seemed kind of flat. I don't hate her like some other characters who play this role in video games, but she didn't make me really like her either. I will admit her Colettiness was amusing at times though. Shirley starts out rather withdrawn and polite, and though she has a rather cold face due to plot issues, by the end of the game, and I'm talking about the character quests that make up the second half of Legendia, she shows some spunk and turns out to be rather fun. A polite and nice normally girl, but stubborn and willing to hurt people emotionally or physically in order to show them the errors of their way and help them through a tough spot. Tyr starts off the game guarded and cold, trying to act as the perfect soldier, but it becomes obvious she has a lot of different feelings and emotions swirling about under the emotionless shell she projects. It's kind of interesting to see her character progression through the game, as she still retains some of that soldier persona, but also starts to show soft sides unexpectedly. She's not bad, but she also didn't make me really want to care about her. Of the three, I'd have to say Shirley is my favorite because she seems the most fun to be around personality-wise. Though the Tales of games don't expressly make romance canon, as I kinda mentioned with the leading ladies, there are definite hints as to who should be together with the main character by the end of things. And in these three particular games, there are also the girl who doesn't get the guy. Good-looking, independent, and seemingly a good match for a leading lady role, these girls have to be content to play second fiddle. Sheena, Chloe, and Natalia are these girls. Sheena is a ninja chick who tries to act tough, but more often than not reveals her soft and insecure side. Something about her attitude and character just rubbed me the wrong way, and I did not use her much at all, even though she has some neat elemental abilities. Chloe also acts tough and like a soldier, but is really soft and insecure on the inside. She holds to her knightly attitude even when it's obvious she'd rather be doing something else. I also did not like Chloe much. She had a thing for Senel, and it was really obvious despite her terrible efforts to hide the crush. And Senel, being oblivious, continued to care for Shirley above everyone else, which just made Chloe more frustrated and obvious. It didn't help that she wasn't that great a fighter either, so I barely used her in-game. Natalia, though not specifically after the main character Luke, was into the man Luke was made from, Ash, and she does not get him, thanks to more plot issues. She is quite naive sometimes, but is trying to make things better for the people of the world, as she is the princess of a rather large nation. Though I didn't use her much, it was more because Tyr had spells that healed groups, whereas Natalia was more of a single heal. I actually liked her character though. So seeing as how I did not like Sheena or Chloe, I think it's safe to say Natalia is my favorite of this bunch. So next up on the docket is the older party member. None of the Tales games on this list have any old characters, but there are the somewhat more responsible role models that the younger ones look up to. Rain, Will, and Jade round up this list. Rain is a half-elf from a different world that came to Lloyd's world at a relatively young age. She's Lloyd, Colette, and Genus's teacher in their village, and also Genus's sister. Being a teacher, she always tries to be logical and explain situations, and she also tends to blame herself when things go wrong. I was rather neutral towards Rain through the game. She didn't wow me, but I didn't hate her either. Will is the sheriff of the main village where it is Beacon on the ship in Legendia. Being the sheriff, he's very responsible and law-abiding. And he actually ends up imprisoning Senel and denying him permission to go on certain missions until he learns to work together with people. He's the cool voice of reason most of the time. I do like his big hammer as a weapon, but personality-wise, Will seemed to be a bit of a stick in the mud. Nothing that made me hate him though, and some of his comments were amusing, but he didn't seem to go anywhere development-wise, even with his character quests. Jade was a child prodigy turned military commander. He's quite possibly the strongest mage in Abyss's world, and created a major form of magic while still a child. In fact, he's the reason why the main character Luke exists at all. Jade hasn't had the best of pasts, which has made him jaded. He's very sarcastic and never shows his true feelings, though sometimes they shine through from under his caustic personality. Jade certainly has the most fun personality of the three, and I am a fan of people who research and create great successes and tragedies, so he's definitely my favorite. Yikes! So far, Abyss's characters seem to be winning most matchups, save for Shirley. Let's see how the second half of the comparisons go. Another archetype the Tales of games seem to use is the young boy. Okay, so they're all sort of young, but these are the ones that look like they're barely teenagers. The characters that fit this type are Genus, Jay, and Ion. Genus had some interesting development in that he started out Lloyd's best friend, but ends up becoming very close to what turns out to be one of the main enemies of the game, Mythos. He's naive and often indecisive, from what I can remember, but a pretty useful magic user. Jay is essentially a ninja. He jumps around and uses weapons in a very ninja-esque style. I like ninjas. As for his character, he's very much the quiet, snarky loner. And then, in his character quests in the second half of Legendia, you find out why he's a snarky loner. Jay has really had a sad and abusive past, and so even though he's kind of a stereotype, he has a deeper reason to be, making his character richer. Ion, though not playable on the first playthrough of Abyss, might as well be since he's with the party for most of the game. He's a sweet, rather optimistic boy who's got a frail body but some awesome magic abilities. Ion doesn't really go through much character development, but his super nice and self-sacrificial ways kind of made me care about him by the end. This one is a tough call since all three young boy characters are decent, but Jay is the one that appeals most to my liking, thanks to his justified, snarky character, and being a ninja. As a complement to the young boy character, the Tales games also seem to have a younger girl character. Persea, Norma, and Annis fit this bill, though Persea is technically older than her looks, and Norma is bordering in her mid to late teens, but I still say they count. Persea is all about the angst. With what happened to her sister and Regal, she does have reason for her angst, though sadly she doesn't get much character development in the game. Sure, she learns forgiveness and such, but she's still a quiet and serious person by endgame. I did like the contradiction between her actual age and what she looks like, and also her rather large weapon compared to her size, but other than that, she was basically a party filler. Norma is a magic-using treasure hunter that will use various means to get the treasure she seeks. She's cheerful, lighthearted, yet also a bit sneaky sometimes. Her past with her mentor is a bit sad, but she's managed to overcome that sadness. She likes to start cheers and tease a lot of the other characters to lighten the mood. Annis is the true young girl, being only 13 years old during Abyss. She's cheerful, but always on the lookout for a way to make money. She frequently attaches herself to a wealthy male and tries to impress them so she can marry into wealth and solve her family's debt problems. Annis does have a darker side, as it turns out she's a bit of a double agent / spy, but in the end she goes good and stays a happy, if somewhat pragmatic girl. Of the three, I'd have to say Norma is my favorite. Even though she and Annis have similar personalities, Norma handles it better and has a more appealing backstory for her treasure-grubbing ways. Sometimes best friend, sometimes just a cool dude, these three Tales games have an all-around good-looking guy. That's not to say the other characters aren't good-looking, but these guys are the ones definitely geared to fangirls. The nominees for this category are Zelos, Moses, and Guy. Zelos seems superficial on the surface, as he's a sexy ladies' man who is treated like royalty, since he is one of the chosen. Really though, he's bitter about his position, and is just trying to make the most from it by getting gifts and such from ladies. I like that dual nature of his, and it leads to some good snark and interesting conversations between other characters and himself. Moses, on the other hand, pretty much epitomizes what you see is what you get. He's a simple, good-hearted warrior who's a little rough around the edges. Moses also has a canine-esque companion named Geet he's super close with, and whom also shows off Moses' soft and protective side. He's a fun character, but there isn't too much there beneath the surface. Guy is Johnny Young Bosch. Yeah, well, that's the first thing I think of when picturing Guy, since his voice is so distinctive. But Guy is interesting, as he's the son of a noble family that was killed off by the king he now serves under. There's a nice tension in that he originally wanted to kill off Luke to get revenge for his family, but ends up being the first of the companions to stick up for and have faith in Luke instead. Guy has secrets and is sometimes sly, but on the whole he's a good guy who goes with what he believes in. I actually like all three of these characters, so it's another tough choice. I think Zelos might be my favorite of the three though, if only because of his darker side. Guy has one too, but the way Zelos handles it amuses me more. Plus, it's fun to see him flirt with the ladies instead of being afraid of them coming near him. Hey, alright, there's finally a Symphonia win. And now we come to 2 versus 2 groups, since Symphonia has 9 playable characters where the other 2 have 8. The 4 left don't go together at all, but they can work 2 on 2. So yeah. First is the I'm a bad guy, but I can turn good and sometimes join your party guy. Kratos from Symphonia and Ash from Abyss fill this role. Kratos goes through a lot of twists in the game, from being random bodyguard who's super cool, to 4,000-year-old enemy, to Lloyd's actual father, and then to ally. Oof. Through it all, he's rather bitter and sullen, never admitting to much, and just doing things his own way as if he trusts no one. Also, he is voiced by Cam Clark, who is one of my favorite voice actors. Ash is the true son of the parents Luke thought were his own. Growing up with the idea his life was stolen from him has made Ash very sour, and he, like Kratos, does not seem to trust anyone else but himself. Ash, however, is young, and therefore stupid. A lot of his actions in the game were needless, and problems could have been solved much faster and with much less sadness if he would just stop being such a baby and cooperate with others. I think you can see by now who I favor in this matchup. Kratos wins for being angsty, cool, and just much more logical than Ash. The last matchup is, well, I could label it something like more than meets the eye, but really we'll just call it the other two. We have Regal from Symphonia and Grun from Legendia. Regal used to be a nobleman, but he fell in love with a lower-class girl who was transformed into a monster that he then killed with his own two hands. Because of this, Regal has a lot of self-hate and even refuses to take off his handcuffs as he vows he will not kill anyone with his hands again. So he uses his feet. Psh. Regal is voiced by another favorite voice actor of mine, Crispin Freeman, but sadly his character isn't really one given a lot of depth or personality. He's a good character, but nothing to write home about. Grun is a ditzy sorceress. She joins the party knowing nothing of her past save her name, but she doesn't let that bother her. She'll happily go along with Norma's crazy schemes and is generally a content person. It turns out she's actually the other half to the dark entity known as Schwartz, who is the last enemy of the game, if you play the character quests. She does regain her memories and becomes a more serious character by the end, which is sad, but also interesting. Plus, she's got the most powerful magic of the game. Out of these two, I like Grun better for her goofiness despite being essentially a godlike creature. So there you have it. Those are my picks for the character archetypes in the Tales of games that I have beaten. It looks like at the end, Abyss gets 3 wins, Legendia gets 4 wins, and Symphonia gets 2. Going into this, I didn't actually expect Legendia to win out, but hey, that's how it happened. For the sake of pimping out all 3 games, I'll do a last little bit awarding each game something special in view of its characters. Symphonia's characters were actually my favorite design. They're very memorable looking, if not all memorable personality-wise. The outfits and hairstyles just stick out in my mind. Even though I needed personality refreshers for the characters, I could recognize them instantly. Maybe it's the bright colors and simple designs, but whatever it is, it worked. Legendia's characters had the most backstory given to them thanks to the whole second half of the game, which is the character quests. Having whole quests that revolved around each character's past and issues really helped to flesh the Legendia cast out. Sure, the characters in the other Tales of games get their pasts revealed and such, but it's during a bigger quest and usually isn't focused on for very long. Legendia's character quests do happen during another bigger quest, but that actually turns out to be Grun's character quest in itself, making everything come together perfectly. Abyss's characters had the best interactions with each other. They all truly affected each other in good ways and bad. It wasn't all fluff and happiness, with Jade being sorry he created the technology that made Luke, Luke being sorry for everything, Guy still harboring some hatred for Luke's family, Natalia wanting the real Luke back in the picture, Tyr playing the good soldier though they were trying to kill her brother, and Annis, well, anyway, the rest of the cast meshed well and made me care about them as a group. Okay, so that's it. My Tales of Symphonia / Legendia / Abyss characters retrospective is done. Sadly, since I don't play Xbox games, I have to skip Vesperia, but I did just get the Tales of Grace's F release, and there's news around the corner that Xillia is going to be released in the US as well. Hooray! So maybe in another 6 years after I beat those, I'll add their casts in and redo the whole thing. But until then, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, so I think I pronounced Kratos the wrong way through the whole thing. Kratos, whatever. Just pretend I said it the way it was supposed to be said, yeah? Also, if you noticed, I was playing songs from Legendia's soundtrack through the whole video. That soundtrack is highly underrated, and is my favorite of the Tales games so far. I just thought I'd give a shout out to some good music. Woo!